They call her a therapist. But what kind of therapist dates her ex-husband's best friend? Beyond the Gates isn't just a soap opera, it's a masterclass in hypocrisy dressed like healing. In the glittering moral swamp of Beyond the Gates, everyone claims the high ground while wading knee-deep in hypocrisy. At the center of this mess stands Nicole Richardson, a woman who could psychoanalyze an army of clients yet can't diagnose her own self-inflicted chaos. For someone whose profession demands clarity, Nicole operates like a walking contradiction wrapped in silk, a therapist who needs therapy. Her divorce from Ted Richardson should have been a clean break. He cheated, she cried. Papers were signed, and that should have been the end of it. Yet, in true soap tradition, emotional closure is as rare as fidelity. Ted's betrayal set the tone, but Nicole's response, kissing his business partner Carlton, is the kind of moral whiplash that makes even veteran soap villains raise an eyebrow. Apparently, the moral compass she polishes so publicly was left spinning on the floor somewhere between her ex-husband's office and Carlton's couch. Carlton, meanwhile, plays the friend-turned-predator role with unnerving ease. For years, he hovered around Nicole and Ted's marriage, like a vulture disguised as a confidant, waiting for the right amount of emotional carnage before swooping in. The man claims affection, yet it's the calculated affection of a chess player moving in for checkmate. To watch him console Nicole is to witness a masterclass in timing, sympathetic enough to earn trust, bold enough to exploit it, and delusional enough to think it's love. When Ted confronted him, Carlton wore the expression of a man shocked that stealing a best friend's ex-wife might have consequences. His faux innocence was almost performance art. The idea that their friendship and business partnership could survive such treachery is laughable, but perhaps in Carlton's mind, loyalty and lust coexist comfortably, as long as no one spells them out too clearly. The truth is simpler. Carlton isn't just a friend gone astray. He's a slow-burn saboteur who mistook opportunity for destiny. His fixation on Nicole is the kind that doesn't fade quietly, and one can only imagine how romantic persistence curdles into obsession. When he looks at Ted, he sees competition, not camaraderie. When he looks at Nicole, he sees possession, not partnership. Ted, of course, doesn't get to play martyr. His affair with Leslie, the perennial chaos agent of Beyond the Gates, set off the entire chain reaction. Yet Ted's brand of guilt comes pre-packaged with entitlement, the kind that insists on forgiveness while quietly excusing itself. His reappearance in Nicole's orbit feels less like redemption and more like nostalgia for control. He doesn't love Nicole as much as he loves the narrative of loving her, the idea that she was his, is his, and might be again if he just glowers hard enough at Carlton. His emotional outbursts around Nicole and Carlton aren't acts of passion, they're power plays. Ted still calls her my wife in conversation, as if grammar alone can rewrite the divorce decree. The result is a triangle less about love than about possession dressed as morality, each character convinced they occupy the righteous side of a story where no one actually stands upright. Nicole, ever the self-styled voice of integrity, spends more time preaching than practicing. She scolds others for their lack of standards, her sister's affairs, her children's choices, yet justifies her own lapses under the banner of emotional confusion. The irony would be delicious if it weren't so exhausting. One moment, she's invoking professional ethics. The next, she's lip-locked with a man whose proximity to her ex makes the whole thing reek of retaliation. Her actions aren't about healing, they're about hurting back. Every gesture toward Carlton reads like a performance staged for Ted's benefit, a psychological middle finger wrapped in flirtation. And when she finally pulls away, citing the need for time or closure, it feels less like moral awakening than image control. Nicole doesn't want Carlton. She wants to be seen wanting him, just long enough for Ted to squirm. The tragedy of Nicole isn't that she's heartbroken, it's that she's addicted to being the injured party. The role grants her moral license, and she wears it like couture. When she proclaims herself over Ted, her voice trembles with all the conviction of someone rehearsing a lie. Deep down, she knows she still measures every man against him, and Carlton's greatest sin might simply be trying to compete in a game that ended 2 decades ago. Then there's Leslie, the woman everyone blames yet no one replaces. She's the show's most necessary villain, the one who keeps the ratings high and the moralists trembling. Leslie's presence exposes the hypocrisy of everyone else. Ted calls her temptation. Nicole calls her poison. Yet both keep orbiting her as if moral gravity doesn't apply. Leslie's greatest weapon isn't seduction, it's persistence. She refuses to be exiled from the narrative, which makes her the most honest character of all. She wants Ted, admits it, and acts on it. Compared to Nicole's self-deception and Ted's guilt-driven denial, Leslie is practically transparent. Her manipulations may be sinister, but at least they're consistent. The others could take notes. The real comedy of Beyond the Gates lies in its selective morality. Nicole's family will publicly crucify Danny for forgiving an unfaithful husband, but barely flinch when Nicole swaps saliva with her ex's bang best friend. The hypocrisy is so thick you could spread it on toast. The entire community, fictional and audience alike, has built an ethical ecosystem where condemnation depends entirely on who's currently likable. Ted's betrayal is unforgivable. Nicole's is understandable. Leslie's manipulations are monstrous. Carlton's are complicated. It's a carousel of moral relativism, spinning endlessly while everyone insists they're facing forward. And at the center stands Nicole, our therapist heroine, pretending the rotation is progress. One can't help but fantasize about Nicole lying on her own therapy couch, clipboard in hand, furiously diagnosing herself. Emotional displacement, she might mutter. Projection. Repressed resentment. Then she'd get up, pour a drink, and text Carlton anyway. Because, really, what's self-awareness without relapse? Nicole's nervous unraveling, the trembling drink, the sharp retorts, the polished smile barely concealing panic, is the soap's most compelling performance of all. She's not just a woman losing control, she's a professional losing credibility. Every breakdown chips away at her authority, transforming her from healer to hypocrite in real time. And yet, for all her contradictions, Nicole remains the gravitational center of Beyond the Gates. Her chaos anchors everyone else's storylines. Ted's guilt, Carlton's desperation, Leslie's schemes. Without her, the men have no rivalry, the women have no moral measuring stick, and the audience has no villain to love or victim to hate. She is the show's mirror, polished, cracked, and impossible to look away from. Carlton's greatest mistake wasn't pursuing Nicole. It was underestimating her taste for martyrdom. He thought he was competing with Ted for affection, when in reality, he was competing with Nicole's own need to appear wronged. To her, every romantic encounter is courtroom evidence. See what you made me do. Carlton thought he was entering a love story. He walked into a psychological exhibition. His eventual humiliation is almost poetic. The man who fancied himself a rescuer becomes a rebound. Nicole ends the evening not in his arms, but in existential crisis, muttering about boundaries while clutching a glass of whatever liquid courage the prop department provided. Carlton, ever oblivious, still believes patience will pay off. It won't. She's not his reward. She's his punishment. As for Ted, redemption is the illusion that keeps him functioning. He sees every argument as a step toward reconciliation, every shared glance as a flicker of the old flame. What he doesn't see is that Nicole's forgiveness isn't coming, not because she can't forgive, but because she won't relinquish the identity of the betrayed. His penance sustains her power. Without his guilt, she's just another woman with bad taste in men. Ted's occasional attempts at humility, the apologies, the self-flagellation, the wounded puppy routine, might work on Leslie, but Nicole requires grander theatrics. Unfortunately for him, he's not competing with Carlton for affection. He's competing with his own past. And no man ever wins against his own ghost. Together, Ted, Nicole, and Carlton form a triangle so toxic it should come with a biohazard label. Each one projects virtue while privately decaying. Ted calls his obsession love. Carlton calls his manipulation loyalty. Nicole calls her vengeance healing. The result is a spectacle of emotional self-harm masquerading as romance. The brilliance of Beyond the Gates lies in how unashamedly it lets them spiral. There's no moral lesson tucked beneath the melodrama, only a slow revelation that righteousness, when performed too long, becomes indistinguishable from vanity. And so, Nicole continues to moralize between nervous breakdowns, Ted keeps confusing remorse for love, and Carlton lingers in the background like an opportunist who's read too many romance novels and not enough room cues. Their lives are a cautionary tale with no one left to heed it. Ultimately, the Beyond the Gates triangle is less a story about betrayal than about ego. Three adults mistaking self-righteousness for emotional depth. Nicole wants control. Ted wants absolution. Carlton wants validation. None of them actually want each other. They're simply addicted to the reflection of themselves they see in the other's eyes. If there's a moral to extract, beneath the wine, the whispering, and the endless nurse's station gossip, it's this. Claiming the high road is easy when the ground beneath is built on denial. Nicole may hold the title of therapist, but in this soap, she's the most untreated patient of them all. If the Richardson triangle was a masterclass in self-inflicted humiliation, the Crest sisters, Kat and Eva, elevate dysfunction into an Olympic event. Their rivalry isn't just personal, it's generational, a battle waged with the inherited weapons of deceit, resentment, and performative virtue. In Beyond the Gates, family isn't a comfort. It's a curse written in the same DNA that codes for bad decisions and even worse men. Let's start with Eva, a woman constantly accused of being her mother's daughter, and unfortunately, not in the complimentary sense. The show paints her as a moral paradox, desperate to escape her mother Leslie's shadow, yet unable to stop reenacting her every manipulation. She insists she's not like her, and then promptly behaves like her with an alarming degree of precision. If denial burned calories, Eva would have vanished seasons ago. The tragedy of Eva isn't her betrayal of Kat, or even her ill-advised affair with Tomas. It's her inability to recognize that she was conditioned for disaster long before the cameras started rolling. She was raised in emotional warfare, taught that survival required secrecy, charm, and the occasional selective silence. When she refuses to expose Leslie's latest scheme, it isn't out of loyalty, it's out of muscle memory. To betray her mother would be to betray the only moral structure she's ever known. And yet, Eva's greatest sin in the eyes of the Beyond the Gates audience isn't sleeping with Tomas. It's refusing to hate Leslie as loudly as everyone else does. Forgiveness in this universe is more scandalous than adultery. On the other side of this familial battlefield stands Kat, Eva's sister and the show's reigning moral prosecutor. If self-righteousness were an Olympic sport, she'd be wearing gold. Kat doesn't just call out hypocrisy, she curates it, ensuring that her own grievances always sparkle under the best lighting. Her crusade against Eva is less about betrayal and more about control. Control of the family narrative, of the moral hierarchy, and, of course, of any man who happens to walk through the scene. When Eva attempts to reconcile, Kat swats away every olive branch with the grace of a courtroom objection. For Kat, forgiveness isn't a virtue, it's a surrender, and surrender is something she reserves for no one, least of all her sister. Her sense of justice is absolute until it involves her own questionable behavior. Then, suddenly, context matters. The irony is delicious. Kat condemns Eva for sleeping with Tomas, yet her own fixation on Isaiah reeks of projection. She insists she's merely protecting him from Eva's manipulative streak, as if the young man needs a babysitter more than agency. In truth, Kat doesn't want Isaiah. She wants Eva not to have him. Control disguised as concern, the family specialty. Enter Isaiah, the poor soul trapped in the gravitational pull of this generational cyclone. With the posture of a man who's been psychoanalyzed without consent, he plays the reluctant pawn in everyone's emotional chess game. He's the man both sisters discuss as if he were a community property dispute. His interest in Eva, however, feels less romantic and more existential. Two damaged people finding comfort in mutual dysfunction. Their chemistry stems not from love, but from recognition. Both are products of parental failure and social suspicion. When Isaiah admits to having skeletons in his own family's closet, Eva leans in like she's hearing her own story retold. Together, they are the human embodiment of the phrase, "It's complicated." Yet, the show frames this potential pairing as scandalous, largely because Beyond the Gates thrives on public disapproval. Their connection isn't about love, it's about defiance. Every shared look between Eva and Isaiah feels like a rebellion against the hypocrisy that suffocates them. Kat's outrage only amplifies it, confirming that nothing cements affection faster than someone else's judgment. Hovering over all this emotional debris is Leslie, the show's reigning puppet master. She doesn't simply meddle. She architects entire moral collapses. Her power lies not in what she does, but in what she makes others do to themselves. Leslie doesn't need to destroy her daughters. She merely sets the stage and lets their egos finish the job. To call Leslie manipulative is an understatement. She's Machiavelli with better hair. Her schemes are grand not because they're elaborate, but because they're believable. She operates on a simple philosophy. If people already crave chaos, all you need to do is whisper permission. In the end, everyone thinks it was their own idea. The brilliance of Leslie's character is that she mirrors the audience. We despise her, yet crave her presence. We call her toxic, while secretly waiting for her next move. She's the villain we deserve, unapologetic, self-aware, and refreshingly free of moral posturing. In a world where everyone cloaks their selfishness in virtue, Leslie's honesty is practically revolutionary. The fandom's collective obsession with condemning Eva exposes something darker than any fictional scandal, our addiction to moral hierarchy. Viewers treat Beyond the Gates less like entertainment and more like a digital courtroom, assigning guilt with the fervor of unpaid prosecutors. The crime? Being human in the wrong way. Eva's every misstep becomes a referendum on her soul, while Kat's equally appalling behavior gets recast as tough love. It's a phenomenon both familiar and grotesque, people excusing cruelty as long as it's committed by someone they identify with. Kat's vindictive meddling is labeled family protection. Eva's remorse is labeled weakness. The hypocrisy isn't just written into the script. It's mirrored in the commentary surrounding it. One of the most compelling undercurrents in Beyond the Gates is the illusion that people outgrow their upbringing. Eva's defenders argue that she's a product of conditioning. Her critics insist she should know better. Both are right, and both miss the point. The show's brilliance lies in portraying moral inheritance as inescapable. These characters aren't evolving, they're recycling. Every generation in Fairmont Crest merely rebrands the sins of the one before. Leslie manipulated, Eva rationalizes, Kat judges, Danny forgives. Each believes they've transcended their past while unknowingly embodying it. In this universe, therapy isn't a path to healing, it's an aesthetic, a way to make dysfunction look sophisticated. The men in this saga are less characters and more narrative tools, convenient mirrors reflecting each woman's delusion. Tomas exists to expose Eva's self-destructive need for validation. Isaiah exists to reveal Kat's possessive streak disguised as protection. Ted and Carlton, meanwhile, are Leslie's case studies in male predictability. Give them a fragile ego and a pretty face, and they'll dismantle their lives on cue. These men don't drive the plot. They react to it. They exist in the gravitational orbit of female ambition and resentment. Every time a man enters the frame, the women weaponize him. To hurt, to prove, to reclaim power. It's Shakespearean, if Shakespeare had written with a martini in hand and a subscription to daytime television. Perhaps the most poignant defense of Eva, buried beneath the show's melodrama, is the concept of conditioning. The argument goes that Eva isn't evil, she's engineered. Raised by Leslie, she inherited manipulation as naturally as language. To condemn her, then, is to ignore the blueprint she was handed. This perspective reframes her not as villain, but as victim, a woman whose entire moral architecture was built by someone who profited from deceit. When Eva hesitates to expose her mother, she isn't complicit. She's traumatized. Conditioning isn't loyalty, it's paralysis. It's knowing the right thing but lacking the emotional muscle to act on it. In that sense, Eva is the show's most tragic figure, a mirror for anyone who's ever mistaken survival for sin. What makes Beyond the Gates such a fascinating cultural microcosm isn't just the storylines, but the way viewers replicate the character's dysfunction. The same audience that condemns Eva for moral weakness often excuses Kat's cruelty under the guise of strength. The same people who label Leslie a monster will defend Ted's serial infidelity because he's trying. It's a masterstroke of writing, a soap opera that turns its viewers into characters without their consent. The collective outrage at Eva's behavior says less about her and more about our discomfort with moral ambiguity. We crave clear villains because they absolve us from introspection. But Beyond the Gates refuses to give us that luxury. Everyone is compromised, and that's precisely what makes it addictive. Ultimately, Kat and Eva aren't opposites. They're mirror images distorted by pride. Kat externalizes pain through judgment. Eva internalizes it through guilt. Both are desperate for control, and both mistake control for healing. Their conflict isn't about Tomas, or even about betrayal. It's about identity. Each woman defines herself by not being the other, yet they orbit the same emotional nucleus. Leslie. The genius of the show's writing lies in how it blurs the line between victim and perpetrator. Kat's sanctimony is as destructive as Eva's deceit. One ruins relationships under the banner of righteousness, the other ruins herself in pursuit of affection. The difference is aesthetic, not moral. Soap operas thrive on redemption arcs, but Beyond the Gates treats redemption like an inside joke. Eva's attempts at remorse always come too late. Kat's brief moments of self-reflection evaporate as soon as someone compliments her integrity. Even Leslie's occasional softness feels more like strategic rebranding than change. In this world, growth is temporary, and lessons are decorative. But that's precisely the point. Beyond the Gates isn't about redemption, it's about exposure. It strips its characters of their moral camouflage until all that's left is ego. Every apology, every tearful confession, every grand gesture is just another performance in a theater of self-justification. And the audience, ever complicit, applauds on cue. If the first act of Beyond the Gates was about romantic hypocrisy, the second is about genetic betrayal, the way family can script our worst impulses. Eva and Kat are not enemies by circumstance, they're casualties of the same inheritance. Leslie didn't just damage them, she designed them. And while Kat fights to prove she's nothing like her mother, Eva fights to believe she could ever be different. Their war is endless because it isn't about justice. It's about identity. To forgive each other would mean acknowledging how similar they truly are, and that, in this family, would be the ultimate humiliation. By the time Beyond the Gates descends into its third circle of drama, the moral fabric of Fairmont Crest resembles a cocktail napkin after happy hour, stained, shredded, and barely holding together. The town's inhabitants, having exhausted the vocabulary of betrayal, now perform emotional gymnastics that would make any therapist file for early retirement. If the Richardsons and Crests represent hypocrisy and inheritance, this final ensemble, Vanessa, Danny, Samantha, Joey, and the rest of Fairmont's social zoo, embody the show's most deliciously cynical thesis. Everyone wants to be loved, but no one wants to be honest. There's an old saying that elegance is refusal. Vanessa, apparently, never got the memo. She's always dressed to kill, but the only casualty is her dignity. Behind the couture and cocktails lies a woman determined to prove she's in control, even as she trips over her own contradictions. Vanessa's romance with Joey, the local Casanova with the moral compass of a weather vane, isn't love. It's a strategic delusion. She calls it empowerment, but it looks suspiciously like desperation in high heels. Joey is half her age and twice her chaos, yet Vanessa treats him as a trophy for surviving middle age with mascara intact. When Danny warns her about Joey's motives, Vanessa dismisses it with the kind of arrogance only denial can sustain. "I've got him under control," she insists, the classic prelude to every televised breakdown. She's the living embodiment of that tragic feminine archetype, the woman who confuses being desired with being valued. Vanessa's storyline isn't about romance at all. It's about vanity aging badly. Her quest to reclaim her power feels more like an audition for a self-help infomercial. She's not chasing love, she's chasing relevance. And in Fairmont Crest, relevance is the only drug stronger than vodka. If Fairmont had a tourism board, Joey would be its mascot. Slick, charming, and utterly predatory. He's the kind of man who turns manipulation into a performance art. Whether seducing Vanessa, undermining Elon, or dancing around police corruption scandals, Joey never really chooses sides. He collects them. He's the series' most dangerous character precisely because he hides behind the illusion of transparency. He smiles, he flirts, he tells half-truths so convincingly that even the audience begins to doubt their own skepticism. Joey isn't a villain in the traditional sense. He's an opportunist who thrives in a moral vacuum. There's even speculation that he's connected to a wider criminal network, a web of cover-ups, payoffs, and conveniently missing evidence. And honestly, who's surprised? He's already sleeping his way through the town's power structure. Why not run it too? If Beyond the Gates were a political thriller instead of a soap, Joey would be the shadow government, manipulating the police, the elite, and anyone else who mistakes charm for integrity. His true romance isn't with Vanessa or any woman, it's with chaos itself. In a town where everyone sins with flair, Danny commits the cardinal one: forgiveness. Her patience with her philandering husband Bill has become the show's most baffling endurance sport. She forgives him, then condemns Ted for a single affair. She praises Nicole for moving on, then clutches her pearls when others do the same. Danny's hypocrisy is almost poetic. She plays the moral referee of Fairmont Crest, always ready with a sermon about integrity. Yet she can't seem to follow her own script. Her forgiveness isn't rooted in grace, but in control. She forgives to feel superior. Nothing says humble virtue like constantly reminding everyone how forgiving you are. Still, Danny remains oddly sympathetic, perhaps because, in a town obsessed with power and performance, she's the rare character who at least pretends to mean well. Her blind faith in redemption, even when undeserved, provides a kind of tragic relief. She's the optimist in a carnival of cynics, and for that, she earns both our pity and our applause. Every soap opera needs a cautionary subplot, and Beyond the Gates found it in Samantha, the teenage daughter turned hormonal wrecking ball. With the self-confidence of someone who just Googled age of consent, Samantha is the embodiment of youthful defiance without the maturity to back it up. Her ill-fated rendezvous with Nathan, conducted naturally in the family living room because privacy is overrated, delivers one of the show's most spectacularly tone-deaf scenes. Just as things escalate, her parents enter like divine retribution in dad jeans. The confrontation is less about sex and more about spectacle, the universal parental meltdown televised for dramatic flair. But the true brilliance of Samantha's storyline lies not in her rebellion, but in its aftermath. Even after being caught mid-tryst, she weaponizes victimhood with teenage precision, sulking, scheming, and stealing her brother's phone to text Nathan in defiance. Every punishment becomes proof of persecution. She's not grounded, she's misunderstood. Samantha is a walking critique of modern entitlement, the product of parents who lecture about boundaries but model none. She's less a character than a social commentary in eyeliner, proof that the apple doesn't fall far from the melodramatic tree. Hovering over this chaos is Chief Elon Hawthorne, a man whose moral ambiguity could fill an entire season on its own. On paper, he's a pillar of authority. In practice, he's a politician with a badge. His connections to Joey, Marcel, and the ever-expanding web of incidents make him the show's quietest ticking bomb. Elon's storyline, however, does more than expose corruption. It highlights the show's obsession with patriarchal decay. Every male authority figure in Fairmont Crest eventually crumbles under the weight of his own ego. Fathers betray sons, husbands betray wives, and every man who swears he's protecting someone inevitably ruins them instead. Elon's feud with Joey epitomizes this. Two men circling each other under the illusion of order, both convinced they're the smartest man in the room. It's a duel of vanity masquerading as justice. In Beyond the Gates, even morality is a competition. Amid the shouting matches and seductions, Nurse Shanice remains the show's accidental philosopher, perpetually stationed at the nurse's desk. Apparently the only gossip hub in Fairmont Crest, she hears everything, says little, and judges everyone. She's not a gossip so much as a curator of chaos. While others self-destruct, Shanice quietly collects moral receipts, offering sly one-liners and side-eye that cut deeper than any monologue. She's the show's Greek chorus, reminding viewers that sanity still exists, even if only in whispers. If Beyond the Gates ever collapses under its own melodrama, Shanice will be the one calmly pouring coffee over the ashes, muttering, "I told you so." By this point, Fairmont Crest operates less like a town and more like an emotional Ponzi scheme. Everyone is investing in hypocrisy and hoping for moral dividends. Nicole lectures on ethics while juggling lovers. Kat crusades for integrity while sabotaging her sister. Vanessa preaches empowerment while begging for validation. Ted performs remorse like it's a Broadway number. The show's genius lies in its consistency. Nobody ever learns, but everyone keeps pretending they have. Growth in Beyond the Gates is performative, a press release disguised as a revelation. It's not about becoming better, it's about looking improved long enough to win the next argument. Even the audience plays along. Viewers demand accountability while excusing their favorite characters' worst sins. It's moral relativism in real time, a feedback loop where ethics are negotiable and outrage is entertainment. In Fairmont Crest, romance isn't about connection, it's about leverage. Relationships are currency, betrayal is inflation, and forgiveness is the reset button everyone abuses. Vanessa wields sex as strategy. Nicole uses heartbreak as PR. Eva treats love like therapy. Kat treats it like war. Every union is a transaction in which power shifts faster than plot lines. And the writers, bless them, understand that in soap economics, scandal is the only stable asset. Even the younger generation has learned the trade. Samantha equates affection with rebellion, proving that in Fairmont Crest, emotional intelligence skips generations like bad credit. Beneath all the cheating, crying, and cross-examining lies, Beyond the Gates' true obsession, image. Every character performs morality for an audience, whether it's society, family, or their own reflection. The show operates as both drama and diagnosis, a mirror for a culture that prizes optics over authenticity. Leslie manipulates but never apologizes, so she's branded evil. Nicole sins but rationalizes, so she's complicated. Vanessa self-destructs in designer heels, so she's relatable. Each woman is less a person than a brand. The men, too, are walking PR disasters. Ted, Carlton, Elon, Joey, each packaging his vices in the language of justification. The brilliance of Beyond the Gates is that it doesn't pretend otherwise. It leans into the performance, turning morality itself into theater. Every confession, every outburst, every kiss framed like an ad campaign for denial. For a show filled with therapists, preachers, and police chiefs, Beyond the Gates is astonishingly allergic to accountability. Instead, its citizens prefer the holy trinity of self-medication, alcohol, repression, and selective memory. Liquor flows through Fairmont Crest like emotional punctuation, a prop for every argument and apology. Nicole drinks to forget her hypocrisy. Vanessa drinks to preserve the illusion of glamour. Ted drinks to simulate regret. Even the teenagers are already circling the family bar cart. The bottles are less a backdrop than a metaphor. Everyone here is intoxicated by avoidance. Even the audience can't ignore the occasional creative absurdity. Transitions appear from nowhere. Storylines vanish mid-sentence, and characters act like they've been lobotomized between Fridays and Mondays. Yet, instead of breaking the illusion, these flaws enhance it. The chaos feels appropriate. After all, Beyond the Gates isn't about realism, it's about rhythm. The disjointed pacing, the sudden tonal shifts, the inexplicable decisions, they all serve the central thesis. In Fairmont Crest, logic is irrelevant because ego is eternal. When the dust settles, or rather, when it briefly pauses before the next storm, Beyond the Gates stands as a love letter to dysfunction. It's not simply a soap opera, it's a sociology experiment in sequins. Its characters aren't caricatures, they're archetypes of modern morality, performative, fragile, and perpetually seeking validation. Nicole embodies professional hypocrisy. Ted personifies repentant vanity. Kat weaponizes righteousness. Eva illustrates the tragedy of conditioning. Vanessa performs empowerment while chasing approval. Joey monetizes chaos. Samantha reenacts generational rebellion with Wi-Fi. And Leslie, glorious, unapologetic Leslie, presides over it all like a patron saint of beautiful sin. Fairmont Crest is more than a setting, it's a worldview, one where every conversation is a confession, every kiss a transaction, and every moral stance a temporary costume. No one truly grows. They just evolve into more self-aware versions of their flaws. So raise a glass, they certainly will, to the only town where betrayal is a hobby, forgiveness a punchline, and denial the reigning religion. Beyond the Gates doesn't ask its audience to believe in redemption. It asks them to admit they enjoy watching people pretend to.